Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about Pokemon Wins and Pokemon Waves. This will be the first trailer analysis for these games. Officially today they were announced. We have our first proper trailer, our first look, as part of the celebration of Pokemon's 30th anniversary. And let me tell you, this trailer has met a lot of my expectations. My hype, my excitement for these games have skyrocketed here. I am very excited and have been taking a closer look at the trailer and the details that have come out, and I do feel like there are some very interesting, cool discoveries that have been made, so that's what we're diving into today. Now before getting into the trailer though, let's first take a quick look at the website because I think there are some important details here that will give us better context to help explain what's going on in the trailer. So firstly, here it said that Pokemon Wins and Waves, all new entries in the Pokemon video game series, will be released exclusively on Nintendo Switch 2 in a simultaneous worldwide release in 2027. So I actually think this is a very, very big deal. One, this is coming out exclusively for Nintendo Switch 2, and what that means is the games are not going to be held back by Switch 1 hardware, so they can focus on making this the most advanced Pokemon game ever, and from what we've seen of the trailer, that seems to very much be clearly the case. Now, the other big thing is this is coming out in 2027. That would then mean this is the longest gap we've ever seen between generations ever. Over the last several generations, the gaps have been 3 years. Very quick turnarounds. But with Generation 10, we were already expecting a longer gap because we're already in 2026. If they were going to maintain their pattern, it would have come out a few months ago, but that's not the case. We were thinking it would come out late 2026, a 4-year gap, which would still be a pretty long, healthy gap, but they've revealed the game's coming out in 2027, which means an even longer gap here, which means more time in the oven, more time to make this a quality release that's very polished. Something that I'm sure many fans are actually going to be excited to hear, especially following the disaster that was Generation 9. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, while it had some really good designs and it was very ambitious, it also came out probably way too quickly. There was a lot of glitches, there was a lot of performance issues, it was unpolished, and it wasn't really representative of the Nintendo brand of quality. Nintendo even had to issue an apology. Now, it wasn't necessarily Nintendo's fault, it was Pokemon Company's and Game Freak's fault, but they're involved. And so it was that bad of a situation, but it looks like both Pokemon Company and Game Freak are trying to right the ship here and fix the Pokemon brand, and from what we've seen of Winds and Waves, they're doing it. So that extra time, I think, is going to be a good thing. Now, I don't think we're going to have to wait a whole other extra year here, though. The trailer did have a lot of gameplay. It seemed pretty far along. In my opinion, we're probably looking at a first half of 2027 release. I wouldn't be totally shocked if they're still trying to get this out by the end of the fiscal year, which would be by the end of March of 2027. So maybe we see it as a March 2027 release. We shall see. But continuing on with the website here, something else that's said that I find really interesting is this part here. During this adventure, you'll be able to team up with all kinds of Pokemon to overcome both the difficult road ahead and even the forces of nature that block your path at times. So here there's a suggestion that the nature, the wilderness, the environment is going to be part of the challenge. And so what I can kind of see happening here is that there's going to be this focus on using your Pokemon to interact with the environment and deal with the challenges of the environment. It's going to be a test of survival, and I think that's going to be really cool. It's going to make the gameplay feel a lot more involved, a lot more immersive. So I'm definitely really liking what we're hearing here, and I think as we dive through the trailer, we're going to be able to glance at some ideas that play into what's being said here. So that's some pretty cool stuff. I'm just kind of scanning through some of the screenshots here. We see all of this in the trailer, but these are some nice stills. Taking a look at the main characters here, we see in Pokemon Winds that they wear white hats and a white backpack, and in Waves they wear a blue hat and blue backpacks. Now also something interesting, just looking at a lot of the screenshots, it's very evident that what we saw from the beta leaks, like, yeah, they were clearly beta. Some people were arguing that that was the best the game was going to look, or it wouldn't even get up to that standard, but actually I would say from what we're seeing here, it's beyond that, which really, if they're beta images, that should have been the case. What we're seeing here is clearly a lot better along the lines of that initial one we saw, So yeah, very good stuff here. We're seeing a good looking Pokemon game. But now a look at the starter Pokemon. We have Brout, the little grass type. We have Pom Bomb, the fire type. And we have Gekwa, the water type. And just looking at a few other screenshots here, they're little behinds. Brout, Pom Bomb, Gekwa. Very cool, cute looking Pokemon, I would say. I mean, there's a little bit of an awkwardness to them, I will admit that, but that's fine. It's their first forms. But you got the Bean Chick Pokemon here. Brout. This Pokemon runs about energetically while photosynthesizing using the leaves on its brow. It's lively, but it can also be a bit clumsy. Interesting. So, can this thing eventually learn Solar Beam and just shoot it from its face? I guess so. Here we have the puppy Pokemon. The area below its throat glows faintly from the heat-generating organ within its lungs. This Pokemon is guileless and friendly. Interesting. Now we have the Water Gecko Pokemon. I think this might be the one I'm going for this time. This Pokemon launches springy balls of water from its tail. Gekwa is very intelligent and maneuvers shrewdly while putting on airs. Interesting. Very calculated. But also what's kind of neat is what they talk about here with these two different Pikachus. These Pikachus have names. Mr. Windychew and Miss Wavychew. As it reads here, the latest video featured the appearance of some Pikachu with a brand new look. Just how could these Pikachu be involved in your adventure? Look forward to our future announcements. So they actually are important. They weren't just for show. I do find this curious. Also, they have a tan. I just think that's also worth pointing out here. It's definitely interesting. Now, a couple of little things I want to show here. Here we had Necrofelipe put together a little comparison. And we can see just like a lake from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet versus what we're seeing in Winds and Waves, and there's a substantial difference with how the games look. Like, it's just night and day, to say the least there. It's a huge, significant leap we're talking about. But then also we have here Kakarot, Brooklyn 996171. They kind of showed a comparison of, this is a screenshot from Winds and Waves. It's low resolution, but even still, you look at the beta image and clearly far more detail, far more going on here. The draw distance looks very impressive. You can still see a lot of detail even this far out. So we're looking at some impressive stuff here, some significant leaps, a good looking game. Now, if you've gone this far into the video, let me just quickly say that I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate your subscription. But now on to the trailer. The beginning of the trailer, I don't really think has anything that's too crazy. It's just kind of like showing art representing the prior generations, but this one is new. What I will say though, is that we do get a nice look at this new design of Pikachu. You can see the fur. Like, there's a lot of detail here, and Pikachu looks a little slimmed down, which, yeah, I mean, Pikachu looks great, but I start freaking out here, like, what's going on? They're teasing the, you know, just the ocean environment of this game. But here you see, I joked around these are Pikachu's parents, but, like, maybe. I don't think actually, because you're not going to have, like, Ash's Pikachu here, right? So it's probably not actually Pikachu's parents, unless there's, like, an anime where maybe they kind of get into that idea. But it is kind of curious how these two Pikachu are very important, and I'm not sure how they will be. But an idea I have is that maybe there's going to be a little bit more of a focus on using accessories or having accessories, not just for your own character, but for your Pokemon as well. They've done a little bit of that with Pikachu before, so perhaps there's something to that idea. Continuing on though, it's just interesting how they have all this kind of personality. Like, what's that thing kind of hanging from Pikachu right there, Mr. whatever, Wavychew, Windychew. I think this is this is Windychew and that's Wavychew. This symbol, I think, might be relevant to kind of like the new core feature of this game. With every generation, there's some sort of new mechanic, be it Dynamaxing, Mega Evolution, Z moves, or terrestrialization. This might be the new thing. So we'll see, but that's kind of what I'm thinking here. I think this is even on the Japanese logo. It's definitely similar looking, so there could be something to that idea there. We'll see. Getting into the gameplay though. Like, just seeing this imagery here, seeing the water, seeing all the coral reefs and stuff under the water, like, the environment is so well realized, even though this is not final footage. Like, it's really nice. Something that I think is worth noting here, I am going frame by frame, and we are seeing 30 FPS footage, but keep in mind, this does not necessarily mean the game will not be 60 frames per second. Now, if it isn't, I wouldn't be totally surprised, because it is open world, it is very detailed, and this is Game Freak we're talking about, who does not have a history of being the most technically impressive with their games. So it may very well be the case that Pokemon Winds and Waves truly is just 30 frames per second and not 60. However, one, the Pokemon Presents was not presenting at 60 frames per second. It was just basic 30. But also, two, we've seen examples where games weren't showing to be at 60 frames per second, and then once they come out, they are. So, like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, they were showing off that game, and for the most part, we only saw 30 FPS gameplay, but by the time the game came out, the game was running at 60 frames per second. Or another one, when we saw the Switch 2 First Look trailer, even though the Switch 2 technically is a 4K capable console, they didn't actually have a reveal trailer that was at 4K, it was at 1080p. So I would not jump to the conclusion 100% that Winds and Waves will not be a 60 FPS game. It still remains to be seen. That said, so far, it has yet to have been confirmed, so keep that in mind. Continuing on, we're just seeing, more of this beautiful environment, and actually, we can get a pretty good look at some of the scope here. There are mountains off into the distance, we can see several, but also, we just take a look at the mountains here, far more detail than we saw in Scarlet and Violet. Like, there's some serious, real geometry here. It doesn't look basic, it looks good. And that alone, I think, is very cool. But there are other little things that are worthy of note here. First off, it's hard to make out, but there is, like, a little island here. And if you look carefully, you can almost see, like, it looks like man-made, actually. And you can even see what appear to be, like, little umbrellas of different colors. This seems to be kind of like a chill spot just out in the middle of the water. And I find that to be very curious. Something else I find very curious is this red balloon right here. It's very small. We'll see some closer up shots of similar items that are just kind of suspended in the air. But I do think this is kind of an important item. We'll be getting into that. I cannot tell what's going on over here. There seems to be something. It might be another red balloon. It's further out, so it's hard to say clearly. But even when we're zooming out, like, it's still there. So it's not like a lighting trick or anything like that. There's clearly something there that's red or pinkish. It might just be another balloon that's further out that you can't even tell. Like, we can barely tell this is a balloon. This one's even further out. Now, this part is actually extremely interesting because we're seeing a windmill. And the windmill has normal frames. Like, it's not choppy, like, in comparison to what we saw for Scarlet and Violet's first reveal, where we saw the windmill and it was moving at, like, 4 frames a second or something. So, this is a dramatic shift here. Also notice the tower has, like, different types of bricks. Like, the level of detail here, maybe in comparison to other kinds of games, you might have been like, okay, that's par for the course, but for Pokemon standards, this is such a huge, significant step up. Like, we're actually looking at a very pretty game. Like, if you want to compare this game to Monster Hunter Stories 3, you could, and it would be a favorable comparison. This isn't like something that looks way dated. Like, after 30 years, finally, Pokemon seems to have made a game that feels like a modern game, at least for Switch 2 standards, so far. Here is a beautiful, beautiful little scene. I love what we're looking at here. This shows that leaked shot we saw from months back, that's absolutely, truly the vision, and they have hit it out of the park. Like, there's some beautiful lighting here. You can see, like, the light shining through the canopies. There's various types of vegetation and growth and plants and types of trees. Like, this looks like a beautiful foresty jungle, and we see Gloom and Tropius. They're very fitting. It's great to see. Now here we see Wailord spouting up some water, so that alone I think is actually interesting to see an animation like that out in the open like this. Also, you'll see Wailmer over there, and notice the scale difference. Like, clearly Wailord is a lot bigger than Wailmer. Now, is Wailmer still considered big? Like, how is this going to compare to the size of the trainer? That remains to be seen, but we're at least seeing some promising signs here that they are keeping scale in mind. Alright, we've talked about this tower a little bit already. This appears to be, I mean, I'm not sure what it is. It's clearly important. I do think this is probably an early town area. We heard from leaks that you start off at some sort of metropolis. Does this count as a metropolis? It's not really a metropolis, so maybe not. It's one big tower, but it's almost like a resort kind of, because you can see that there are different like little houses here, and then there's more over here. So very interesting stuff. This may be where we meet the professor. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, notice here how this water is enclosed by these rocks here. I just think that's a really nice look at the environment. Like, there's a lot of variation to the environment here. Like, you can see there's some sort of structure here in this area, this pocket. You got a little mini beach here. You have the main beach here, and then off over here. Like, there's just a lot of variation to the buildings, the elevation, the forest, the water. This just seems like a much better realized open world in comparison to Scarlet and Violet. We're talking about a significant leap here. Something else I think is really interesting is that we see another one of these little balloons. It's closer, still far away, but it's closer. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see something even closer soon. But here's another look, a different vantage point of this tower. And it very much looks like a resort. Like a really nice resort. I definitely want to go here on vacation. It looks awesome. Here's our first look at the trainers in third person there. And yeah, I mean, this is all the same town area, right? So this may truly be the beginning area of the game. We're seeing these up close shots. Like, could this truly... I definitely get the vibe this is the beginning area of the game. Like, you start off at this resort. Like, this even looks like... Okay, take a look at this. Like, you see here, like, there's a bed. There is a laptop. Like, this looks like where you're on vacation and you decide this is where you're kind of hanging out, you know, until you decide to set out on your adventure. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going on here. But you just run off into the wilderness and you see these Talo here. Who's that? Oh, yeah, I know who that is. I forget his name, but it was in the prior gen. Here we get a really good look at the balloon. So we keep seeing these balloons all over the place. What is the purpose of the balloon? I'll tell you what I think it is. I think the balloon is not like a Pokemon Center kind of thing, although maybe it could be a marker for a Pokemon Center. Although when we go back to earlier on, there was no sign of any kind of Pokemon Center. Like, when we go back to the beginning shot here, like, you don't see any Pokemon Center building here, and if there's another balloon here, we don't see it there either. So I think more likely what we're looking at here is actually not a Pokemon Center, but perhaps something that we can interact with that's kind of like maybe a survival kit. Let's keep in mind, they've talked about how the environment is going to be part of the challenge here. So I think maybe there are going to be survival kits that are alongside different routes. That's my thinking. But here we do see a Pokemon Center, and it's not just a Pokemon Center, but also a shop. They have them combined, and it looks really nice. It's a little bit more detailed than what we saw in the prior gen. I don't think there's really much else to say for this, but there it is. See Oddish and Tangela. They're just running into this jungle here. It's very dense. And here, this part kind of just blows me away. So we can just see the tides, like the amount the water just kind of moving around here. It's pretty intense. And that's awesome. But we can see kind of like the town off here. Well, that's not even the town. It's actually a closer up shot from where we were looking at the very beginning. This is that island with those little umbrellas over there. We get another look at the balloon. And then actually, now that we're closer, this actually also looks like a balloon. Now that we're closer, it's a little bit easier to tell. There's even more regions to explore off to the side over here, which we couldn't tell before if that was there, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like we could only see here, so there's definitely more going on. How big this world is, hard to say. Now, here we just see, I actually really like what we're seeing here. It may seem simple, we're getting a closer look at the town, but there's something here that I think is perhaps implied. Maybe implied is a little bit of a stretch, but I think there could be something going on here that I think is really important. And what I'm getting at here is that we see this town, right? And there are these separate little areas that you kind of walk out to, and there's these individual houses. We don't see anything going on here. There's no people. Again, this is an early on trailer, so maybe they haven't added that in yet. That's possible. Maybe because it's panned out, they haven't like popped in. That's also possible. But what I will say is that these little houses because they're kind of going off separately and there's nothing seemingly going on there, I'm led to believe that you can go inside them. And I think this is a big deal because in recent Pokemon offerings, most of the buildings you cannot go into. Now, I'm not expecting you can go into every single building in the game, but once upon a time, a lot of the buildings you were able to go into, many of them. It was a more believable world, even though it was simpler visuals with the sprite-based graphics. But now that they've gone into 3D, lately, you haven't really been able to go into most of these buildings. So it would be nice to be able to do that, interact with characters, have more side quests, more items to find, more to the lore, and seeing a town like this and seeing how the houses, how they're positioned, gives me a little bit of confidence that they might just be doing that. Now, I theorized earlier that the balloons might be a survival kit, but something that may go against that theory is that we can see here that the end of the balloon seems to be connected actually to a Pokemon Center. So I might have been wrong there. It might just be that they are beacons for Pokemon Centers, but again, earlier I saw other balloons and there did not seem to be any kind of Pokemon Center in sight. So there could be a little bit of both going on here. It's hard to say for sure. The beautiful just panning shot here of Leddyba and Leddian here inside a cave. You can see the warm glow of the fire type Pokemon. So there's a lot better lighting here. We can see Pikachu's new design here in motion. Look, there's another shot of a balloon over there. I don't think Pokemon Centers are going to be that prevalent, so I do think there's something else to this. Maybe they're mini Pokemon Centers or something like that. Some sort of help for your survival is what I'm betting. Which actually, the more I think about it, would kind of make sense that it would be associated with the Pokemon Center because maybe they kind of come from the Pokemon Centers. But look at kind of like the little cool particle effects that are coming out when you catch a Pokemon. Like you have like 3D stars coming out. That's super cool. Beautiful shot again. Just there's so many. Everything's beautiful, and everything looks beautiful here. Oh, so at night the lights come out of the resort. That's super cool. Different environments. We got mangroves, swamps. Makes sense. Okay, that's an interesting looking building there. Now, is there anything else crazy going on? We've seen the starters already. Nothing too mind-blowing about them. I just think they look cool. I'm definitely feeling the water starter. Now, something that I think is really interesting though is just kind of like the level of quality that I'm kind of sensing from the environment, right? Like the Pokemon animations look really good. It's all in engine. You can see like lighting coming out through the cave here. You see here with just you look at the water around in the jungle, like there's just a greater sense of detail and quality in comparison to prior games. But even here, you look at the weather effects, the waves, the way they move, you can see the wind. It's kind of crazy looking. There's so many different types of islands. There's a lot to explore and find here. But something I think is really interesting, you see here, this particular cloud is different than the rest. It's not moving off into distance with the wind. It's kind of just settled there. And I do think this is something, like it's darker, maybe it's just like a basic rain cloud. It could be just a rain cloud, but it almost looks serpentine by design. It's curious, it's just kind of there stationary. And so I wonder if this is something that's kind of going on over there that you can interact with. I will say that from the Terra leaks, there's been some talk of there being genies or Majins, and maybe that has something to do with what's going on over there. Could be. But now we go underwater. But here we just see all the water Pokemon, all the plant life. It's just beautiful looking, the sun shining through. It's a beautiful underwater environment. And that's pretty much it. Like, we've already talked about the release date stuff. There's definitely something going on with like the weather mechanics here. I think that's going to play a role with what's going to kind of get in your way. Like maybe there's going to be tidal waves, gusts of wind, tornadoes. That could all lead towards a pretty big deal. But those are my initial thoughts on the first trailer for Pokemon Winds and Waves. What do you all think? Is there anything you noticed or discovered? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.